Mustafa? Mustafa, or not?
Let me take the chair so you're more free to. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakumullah khairan for being here. One more time, inshallah, sisters, if you'd like to be with us in the main prayer area, please open the door and come sit with us, inshallah. In the right side is for your seating. Tonight, inshallah, we continue what we started a few months back to know our roots. We presented, Brother Asam a few months back presented about Palestine. Brother Muhammad Rida presented about Indonesia. And today, inshallah, we have Brother Muhammet Uncer, who's going to present a talk to us tonight about Turkey and Islamic Turkey specifically. Brother Muhammad moved to the United States. Mehmet moved to the United States in 2006. He is father of 2 young boys, and he's married to an Egyptian as well, Egyptian doctor, alhamdulillah. And I have the honor and pleasure to work with him for a few years. Alhamdulillah, we speak at work on a weekly basis, if not daily basis. And he's been a pleasure to work with, alhamdulillah, jazakallah khairan. He's one of the my favorite people to work to. He provides the spec for the thing I do. So alhamdulillah, we have a very strong relationship. Jazakallah khairan for being here and spending the time with us. Without further ado, Brother Muhammet Uncer.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Brothers and sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm so happy to talk about Turkey here. As Brother Mustafa in 2006, I did my graduate study in the East Coast, and I've been with Intel for almost 10 years, I believe. I am married to Egyptians. Some of this stuff, especially historical stuffs, I didn't mean to offend anyone. I will say we conquered and stuff. Sometimes it means that we are conquering someone sitting there. I didn't mean to offend anyone. I'm married to an Egyptian myself, so we are all equal in the eye of Allah, inshallah. My name is Muhammad. My last name is a bit weird. Even Brother Mustafa didn't. My last name is reads as Uncer, means baker in the army. But I gave up on that. No one could easily pronounce it. So, yeah, I think people call it Ankur, whatever that is. I don't care anymore that much. So this is our flag. It used to be green before Turkey became a Republic of Turkey. Am I make it close? Okay. Is it any better? Yes. Okay. Let me know, inshallah. I'll do better. When Turkey turned from Ottoman to Republic of Turkey or Turkey, we changed the color, and the color represents the blood that shed during the war, World War I, and following war after World War I. For the presentation, I'll talk about the Republic of Turkey or Turkey. I assume no previous knowledge, so some of it might be too boring for you. And as I go down the list, I'll make it a little bit more sophisticated. Maybe I'll give you more information that you might not know, or when you search online, it might not be the first thing that you will see. Put this here. Let me start with the Republic of Turkey or Turkey. So if you're in Seattle area, if you take a flight, it takes about 12 hours. There's a non-stop flight nowadays from Seattle to Istanbul, and you can pretty much go from Seattle to Istanbul, Turkey or Turkey. Turkey is this red-colored area. It's a peninsula. There's a Mediterranean Sea here across from Egypt. There's Aegean Sea and then Black Sea next to Russia. Let me zoom in a little bit. So you land in Istanbul. Istanbul has a canal that divides the city in half. If you go to the Asian side, you'll see that Welcome to Asia sign right at the bridge. And if you go to the European side, you'll see Welcome to Europe. And there is really a stark difference. If you move to the Asian side, you'll see different kind of people. I mean, I lived in both sides, and there's some change. And if you go to the European side, people are different. You might notice it if even as an outsider. Turkey is a peninsula, as I mentioned. This is Mediterranean Sea. Below is Egypt and Northern Africa. This is Aegean Sea next to Greece, and Black Sea is up there. It's a what else I can say here? So it's next to a very complicated region, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. This area is very complicated, as you guys might all know. And the Black Sea is also a very complicated region. I think the only region that's relatively calm is here, the Asian side, but this side is also is sort of in conflict with the Greek people. So Turkey is in a very tough spot in terms of geography. In terms of region, Turkey has 7 regions. This region is Black Sea region. This region is very similar to Oregon, in case you didn't notice. And if there's some high inflation or development happens, it immediately impacts here, Oregon, because of hazelnut. 75% of the world's hazelnut is produced in this region. The rest, I guess, are produced in Oregon. So there's a very immediate impact of Turkey to Oregon. So and then this area is very green, same amount of the rainfall happens here. So if you happen to go here, you will not miss Oregon. It's very similar to here. I'm from in this area, southern eastern Anatolia or Turkey. This is the area where the earthquake happened, unfortunately, early 2023. This area is part of the old Mesopotamia. This area is very rich in culture. Eastern Anatolia is quite cold, and not many people live here because of the weather conditions. Mediterranean region is essentially the coastal region. A lot of tourists come here and visit here. Antalya is here, famous places. Same is true for Aegean Sea. And Marmara is where Istanbul is. And these are the neighboring countries. So in terms of Turkish people or Turkic countries, Turkey is not the only country that speaks Turkish. There's a lot of other countries that speak some form of Turkish. Or they are descendants of the same Turkic background. We are here, Azerbaijan. We are also part of the same August Turks. We are able to communicate quite easily. We actually speak almost the same language. When I watch an Azerbaijani TV, I easily understand what they're talking about, and same is true for Azerbaijani person listening to Turkey. Turkmenistan is also very close to us. As you go up north, these countries are heavily influenced by Russia. So technically we speak the same language, but we need a translator. We are not able to communicate easily anymore. The words match, but when you make a full sentence, we are not able to communicate anymore. And they also use mostly Russian alphabet, Cyrillic. Technically we speak the same language, but they are, and most people that I know from this region, they speak Russian almost their first language. So because of the influence of Russia or the USSR, back in the day, they are mostly Russian influenced. Go one more. Okay, this is another topic. Why is it Turkey, the animal? Why is it? Why are we named the same as an animal? Let me explain this one. One thing is Turkish government is nowadays pushing a lot of countries, European and same United States, that to use the word Turkiya. So in official places, you might hear Turkiya more and more often nowadays, but it will take some time. So we are not happy that people are using Turkey in the official communication. We ask, and I think it passed a lot of countries now, they will start using Turkiya as in their communication. This one is a sort of a funny one. I think it's a miscommunication. The first time the turkey, and it wasn't really a turkey animal, imported to Europe through Ottoman Empire. And they start calling it turkey cock or turkey hen, and it just stayed there. And then later, actual Turkey came from United States, but at the time it was called Land of Indians. So some European countries, France would call it Rustre of India, Hindi. And one fun fact, we also call it Hindi, Rustre of India. So we also don't use this word correctly. It doesn't come from India, but just because Christopher Columbus called it India, or Land of Indians, we also call it Hindi, which is Rustre of India. So I think at the end of the day, just the name Turkey just stuck. We do not eat or produce turkeys in any meaningful way in Turkey. I actually myself didn't eat any turkey in Turkey. And I didn't see any farm or anything that produced turkey in Turkey. So we are far from it, but somehow we are associated with this animal. Okay. Let me talk about where Turkish people are coming from. We are essential descendants of the Ottoman Empire. We call it Devleti Aliye Osmaniye. So we are coming from the Osman, the name Osman, the founder. If you guys are watching Netflix, Ertuğrul Osman is the son of Ertuğrul. So it started out as a small city in this black area, Ottomans, and then later we got to Bursa as the capital, and we make it capital city, and then as time progressed, we grew, and I think during the time of Selim, this green area, we got the first time we became a Muslim majority country or empire. Before that, Ottoman was majority Christian. And in 1915, and all Turks watch what else has to say about that time. If it's a Republican, they usually avoid using the term genocide. But if it's a Democrat, depending on the time, sometimes they use genocide, sometimes they don't. So we don't use this word in our history. But since Armenian people moved to Armenian diaspora, I should say, moved to Europe and United States much before us, a lot of the history of Ottoman is actually just sort of hidden or put away, and a lot of people just focus on this 1915 time, which is right after, or right around the time World War I happened. So if you read if you watch any documentary or any publication here in the United States or in Europe, you will always hear this 1915, and the Turks don't like that we are associated with this, but it always happens. That's another thing. The other thing that when I say we Ottomans conquered all the way to Algeria, but Moroccan was never conquered. So Morocco was never part of Ottomans. And then we stopped at the gate of Vienna, and that was the time Suleiman the Magnificent was there. And Ottomans during the time of Selim, they conquered the Cairo, and at the time he became the first caliph or caliphate, and at the same time Ottoman Sultan. Ottoman has a lot of sultans, a lot of important figures, but the way I saw it, at least the way I got the education, is these are the most important figures in the Ottoman history. And these are just in sort of order. Mehmet II came first. There are a lot of sultans, and some of them I don't know the name myself. I forget, but these are the most important figures. Mehmet, we call him Fatih Sultan Mehmet, and as you guys probably already noticed that we don't use the name Muhammad very often. We use Mehmet. So my name is I'm Muhammad, but most people call me Mehmet as well. So Mehmet II, the reason he is called Fatih is because he is the Sultan who conquered Istanbul. At the time it was called Constantinople, and after that the Orthodoxy was under Ottomans. As I said, until Ottoman conquered Cairo from Mamluks. Ottoman was mostly a Christian empire. And then one thing that maybe this is not very well often, this is not often said, but if you look at Christopher Columbus' writings, Voyagers, he's not just trying to find a land to conquer or to get some bounty. He is also looking for ways to get some allies against Islam, against Ottoman Empire. So he was impacted by by Mehmet II when he conquered Istanbul. He's being a Christian and being a sort of he's being a very he's being a pretty Christian himself. He was looking for allies. He was India or China, where he could find a Christian, a big Christian power to fight against Ottomans or Islam at the time. And when he conquered in 1492, and Istanbul was conquered in 1453. So there's the timing match. And I heard this in some books. It's not very well, it's not documented everywhere, but if you look at it, there's a city here called Matamoros, which means Muslim slayer at the US border. And one would wonder, why would you call a city Matamoros, a Muslim slayer? So there is definitely a religious reason when America was when Christopher Columbus found America for the first time, he was not just looking for some bounty; he was also looking for allies to fight against Islam. This might be a little bit of a provocative statement, but I do believe that Ottomans have some role in today's Columbus Day that we celebrate in the United States. It's not documented; it's not set in movies or books, but we have some roles here. And there's a very nice Netflix series. It talks about how Mehmet conquered Istanbul. If you guys, it's a limited series, but it's very well documented there. So this is actually a Spanish word. Mata means, let me see. So Mata means Muslim, and Moros means the killer, I believe. I'm sorry, you're right. Moors is Muslim, and the Mata is the killer.
Because Ottoman Empire came while the
the conquest.
And that was going down. Actually, there's some question why the Ottomans did not support or help the Andalusia border. We should go into that now.
Yeah, at the time, I believe Ottomans at least sheltered some minorities. They didn't help for sure. But a lot of Jews, Christians, and Muslims got sheltered under Ottomans. I think at the time it was going through. I'll talk about it, but I have another sultan in there. There's turbulent time going on there. Maybe it's just the timing. There was fight going on at the throne. Maybe it has something to do with that. So after Mehmet conquered Istanbul, it was a majority Christian empire, but it was ruled by Muslim sultan. Selim came not immediately after Mehmet, but there is another person, Bayezid, between Mehmet and Selim. But I skipped that person. He's not as influential as Selim. I believe Selim is probably the most influential person in the Ottoman history, and maybe he might be even most influential person even today. If you look at the latest bridge in Istanbul, which was built in 4 years ago, I believe, Erdogan named it after Selim. So Selim is a very interesting person, and we call him Yavuz Sultan Selim. I think other people call it Selim the Grim. He only stayed in power 8 years. That's pretty amazing. But he conquered most places under his throne, and he's the first caliph. After the fight with the Mamluks, after he got to Cairo, he became caliph. And he essentially opened up the sort of time and resource for the next sultan. He actually died at 1520. He didn't just step down, but he was the youngest son. He pretty much murdered all the elder brothers. At the time, it was normal, I guess. No, he also that's not for sure, but he also murdered his father. So that's the belief. So he was a very aggressive person, probably the most aggressive in the history of Ottoman. This is probably a little bit of into controversial statement, but he's the most influential sultan. And today, most people believe that Erdogan is also sort of trying to get some lesson from this guy, from this sultan. Suleiman is right after Selim, and Suleiman didn't have to go through all the troubles that Selim went through. Essentially, Yavuz Sultan Selim just made it possible for Suleiman to focus on, the actual work. He didn't have to fight brothers. He didn't have to do any of the things that Selim had to go through. We believe that under Suleiman the Magnificent, we had the golden years in Ottoman Empire history. In Turkish, we call him Kanuni, which is a lawmaker. Under his throne, there were a lot of reforms. He's, in a way, did a little bit of what we have. Like he separates sultanic, laws, Sharia laws, and he also did a lot of work in the taxation under the Ottoman Empire. And this is Turkish, but I think it's also on Netflix if you want to watch. This is a bit of there's some fictional part to it, but it does reflect the timing of Suleiman.
What is the separation? What is the sultan?
So he was essentially, because there were a lot of minority groups, like Christian, Jews under his rule. When he was creating rules, especially for the local regions, he was separating being that he's Muslim, but the region itself is not Muslim, when he's creating the rules, he would follow the, whenever possible, essentially, whenever possible, he would follow the rules of that region. He would let them make that, judicial statement, as long as it doesn't conflict with the Ottoman rules, or at least the Sharia law rules. But he would let the essentially the local judicial system work on themselves without meddling with the issues of that local region. And he did all of reforms also in the taxation. I don't have the full history. It's a bit complicated. I didn't prepare anything. The last one that I would talk about, and there's a huge time period between Süleyman Atatürk. This ends in 1600. Now we're talking about 1900. So there's almost 200 years of separation. But Atatürk is not his original name. Atatürk means the founder of Turks. So this name is given to him after he founded the Turkish Republic. His first name is Mustafa. Kemal is the name that was given to him in elementary school, I believe. He was born in Salonika. This is not part of Turkey anymore. It's part of Greece. One thing is, I don't know if you read, this region is very important region. A lot of Jews lived here before they moved to the current Israel. This was very rich in terms of Jewish history. He was born there. There's a lot of speculation of Atatürk's background. I'm not going to get into that. But essentially, he got his education and he moved to Istanbul. He wasn't happy with the Ottoman ruling. He wanted to change Turkey. He first fought against the big powers, Britain at the time, France, Italy, and he won the war. And as soon as he won the war, he started applying secular constitution. So he separated the religious religion from the constitution. He actually removed any religious items in the constitution. He created a complete secular constitution. He dropped Arabic letters, and he moved to the Latin alphabet. This is probably one of the most controversial items he did. The other thing that most people might not know, azan was Turkish in Turkey until 1950. So it wasn't Arabic. And in the 1950 change, Atatürk was not very pious person. He wasn't very religious, and he wouldn't keep it a secret. He would drink a lot of alcohol. It was public. He wasn't a very religious person. He's not very controversial in Turkey in the sense that a lot of people like him. He still like what he did in that time. But some, especially the conservative people in Turkey, didn't like that he pushed his agenda. In a way, he was trying to make Turkey more democratic, but he couldn't just do it by using regular means. He was essentially to get to democracy, he was using oppression. He didn't allow, for example, the fast I believe in some Arabic countries, he banned it. He forced people to wear a hat, actual hat, in Western style. He wasn't a dictator. I think people don't use that term with Atatürk. But at the time, he really had a goal for Turkey to make it a Western country. And to achieve that, he used oppression. In a way, he says like benevolent dictator. There's some people in Turkey still think that whatever Atatürk did was harmful to Turkey, especially the fact that Arabic letters were dropped. People think that we were not able to read Quran or whatever had been published before the Turkish Republic. We couldn't read it. But in today's Turkey, if you ask me or if you ask anyone, most people like Atatürk. they like what he stands for. They like that he adopted constitution. But there's still some conservative minority that don't like Atatürk. And there is what Erdogan thinks about Atatürk is still a question mark, because Erdogan is also a part of a religious group that was oppressed at the time, or at least coming from that time, from that section.
So the Quran was not allowed in Arabic?
Good question, actually. Yeah, Quran was allowed in Arabic. It's just that in like official communication, Arabic letters were banned. You could still read Quran. I mean, obviously, Quran was Arabic. But it was translated to Latin alphabet. And the ibadat was done in Arabic. It just, there was still Arabic there. It just official letters, day-to-day, schools, for example, Arabic letters were dropped. It was not allowed. But the Quran was there, obviously.
So secular constitution means what things he got rid of from
Let me think. Essentially, any Sharia laws that was there before, that got inherited from the Ottomans, he dropped that.
people like that he dropped Sharia law?
That's a good question, and I think I'll try to answer as much as I could. At the time, a lot of people objected to this idea, like especially in the deep Anatolia, in the central Anatolia, people didn't like it, and at some point there was another party that came out. Atatürk founded one party, and then there was another party that came out with different ideas. But Atatürk he had to use oppression to get rid of that second party. So in a way, even though people didn't like it at the time, they just didn't have any choice, because Atatürk had the power, and he just won the war. So he had the charisma, he had the and the Sultan had to leave the country. Descendants of Sultan now lives in Britain. They don't even speak Turkish nowadays. The Sultan had to leave. So because he was such a prestigious person, and he just won the war, a lot of people just they didn't like what Ottoman Sultan stood for, because Sultan just essentially was trying to give away the land to the other powers. Even though, especially religious people didn't like what he did, it's just that they just couldn't do much, essentially. And then whoever protested heavily, they were arrested, they were put in prison or something. So there is some casualties happen here. But the idea of Atatürk is that, by the way, I do like Atatürk. I'm not against him. It's just that he used this as a means to get Turkey to a better place. That's what he had in his mind. And he stepped down as a regular president. He didn't, when the time came, he stepped down and let the others govern. It's just that he thought this is where Turkey should be in the Western world.
Other than these, what were the ways he made Turkey better, other than this?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Women in Europe, actually, one of the first countries that had the right to vote in Turkey, that was given in 1934. The other thing, and I think this might be just because of timing. People say that when Latin alphabet was adopted, the literacy rate went up. So more and more people start reading and writing. That happened. The other thing, it,
So when you say they slowed down on giving away land to other nations?
he essentially gave up on fighting against other countries. He was trying to negotiate with Britain and France and Italy at the time. The Sultan just didn't want to have any war. He was willing to partition the Turkey. Like where I'm from the southern eastern. According to plan, my city would be part of Britain. So Turkey had never went through any colonization power because of Atatürk. We think that's a good thing. Um, Turkey after Atatürk or when he was in power, it was a very poor country. It wasn't by no means it was a prosperous country. And when he left, Turkey had to still go through a lot of trouble just because of mostly this secular constitution. It wasn't easy. It was an easy transition. This democracy and everything. We had multiple coups, military coups. So it wasn't an easy transition. But overall, since he fought, he protected the country, he rallied the whole country against these big powers. We think that made the current Turkey possible. He's a very controversial person in the sense that until very recently, you couldn't criticize Atatürk in Turkey. The military would protect it. Any criticism, and even the fact that you could call him an alcoholic, because he was an alcoholic. I mean, he died because of alcohol. Even that was, if you do that, you would be, you could be imprisoned or you could be jailed because he was a figure that you couldn't criticize in a way. I don't think he meant that Turkey to be like that. He probably would prefer to be criticized, but the country that he left with, especially with the military power, he essentially became a very strong, his ideas became really strong, especially the military side of Turkey tried to protect the Atatürk's ideas. Even a hint of Islam, like a non-secular constitution, even a hint of it would create a coup in Turkey. It's no longer the case. It changed quite a bit. The time that I'm talking about is 1980s, 70s, and 50s. But for a majority Muslim country to have a secular constitution, it's not an easy task. It's not easy to adopt. Yeah. Sorry, that was. Okay. Let me see what I have. Language. Okay. Let me talk about language. Turkish language has a lot of agglutination. Agglutination means you have a word and you just keep adding suffixes to it. Believe it or not, this is actually just single word. So you start from here, and here it's a single word. And it means as if you were one of those we might not be able to fail. So this is just, you could make it with one single word. Essentially, I don't want to scare you guys. I don't use this, and I don't think any regular Turks would use this. I would probably stop somewhere here. I wouldn't go all the way. I would chop it up. But you could, in theory, create a long word like this. I can try. Muvaffakiyetsizleştiricileştiri. I'm sorry. I think I am also failing. Since I lived in this country so long. I know a lot of people, outsiders, might think that Turkish language is very difficult because of this, because it looks long. But if you study this language, I've seen a lot of people doing it in Turkey, like from other countries. it's not that difficult, I believe. And one nice thing about Turkish language is we don't have any gendered pronouns. Like Arabic and English, we have this, he, she, it, and stuff. We just use one word, o. If you read a Turkish sentence, you cannot tell if it's referring to a female or male. It's completely non-gendered. So that I believe that makes it easier, especially if you're trying to learn any other language. Most languages have he, she, it version of it. Turkish doesn't have it. That's nice. The other thing that I don't know if a lot of people know this, but maybe I mentioned this before. There are a lot of countries that speak Turkish, not just us. There's even places here, it's called Yakutistan. And I just watched some documentaries about this. They look very different than us, but they speak Turkish. When they speak, I could understand what they're saying in bits and pieces. So there are a lot of people who speak Turkish, or some form of Turkish. People who are working for Intel, they might see that there's a lot of Korean people in Intel. And I learned it here myself. But we have a lot of similar words between Korean and Turkish. And I seen this with my own eye. If you say kaçma, both Korean and Turkish would react the same. It means don't run, don't go. In Korea, it's kaçma. And you can say that we use the same ma, means don't do it. There's a lot of similarity. Sometimes when I watch some Korean movies or something, I hear bits and pieces of same words. And it's because it's coming from the same language family. Because Turks came from Far East, close, Eastern Asia. We still have similar words, and Korean also uses a lot of suffixes, agglutination. So we have a lot of similarity, which is kind of weird. We are very far away. We don't even use the same alphabet, but there's a lot of similarities. That just tells you how nomadic we are. We came from all the way to Eastern Asia. Yeah, we call him Göktürk. It means like heaven Turk or something, but always Turks, yeah. Yeah. You're talking about Atatürk? Latin. Yeah, language. So before this change, we speak the same language. We speak the same. It's just the way it's written. Instead of using like alif and bez, and we start using the Latin alphabets, like that we're using in English. Essentially, he changed the whole written Turkish to use Latin alphabet. But the regular day-to-day speaking, I could, if you put me back in the Ottoman Empire, I would be able to communicate. It's just that, and bear in mind that at the time the literacy rate was very low, so not a lot of people could read and write. So it wasn't you couldn't change the actual language even if you wanted to. He just banned the Arabic letters essentially in the schools and public communication and whatnot. But the language stayed the same. Okay, Turkish demographics. Turkey is a Sunni Muslim for the most part. The number that I got from different sources that we are 99.8% Muslim. Within the Muslim, we have some Alawites. We call them Alevi Muslim Alawites, and it's about 10% of it. It's mostly in the central Turkey. These, I don't know if you're familiar with these Alawi Muslims. They are in a way like Shia Muslims. Alawites. I yeah. I didn't mean that. Yeah. But about 10% of this is Jafari. This is a Shia Muslim. Um, so maybe more like 80% or something Sunni Muslim. But I haven't seen anyone from Shia or Alevi. When I lived in Turkey, I didn't encounter it. They're very localized. Like these Jafaris are localized to this region, somewhere here. Very local, uh, that you wouldn't see them in Istanbul or any other big cities. It's very local. And Alevi is also is very localized religion that you won't see the other places, in big cities. So we do have some Armenians, some Assyrians, and some Jews living in Turkey as well. But the numbers are, I wouldn't trust these numbers very well, but the numbers are very small. I only saw maybe one Armenian when I lived in Turkey until like 23, until the age of 20. I only saw one Armenian, I never seen any Assyrian myself. So the numbers are a bit murky. I think these are very, very small minorities, and I put these tildes on purpose because they're very small number of people living there. When I go to Turkey nowadays, I see a lot of Syrian people now, and they have their own stores. Arabic letters are now everywhere. This was not the case before 2010 or 2012 when the Syrian people started migrating to Turkey. This is probably one of the biggest problems in Turkey now. There's a lot of tension building up because of this. Turkish population is about 80 million. So this 4 million is adding a lot of pressure. And there's a lot also other people from other regions, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. They're all migrating to Turkey. That's a lot of pressure to Turkey. Also, if you go to any of these coastal cities, I don't have it in my slide, but you will see a lot of Russian, Ukrainian, German, British people. They in a way gentrify this area. That also creates some tension for the country. It's interesting. Last time I went to Turkey, we went to a store. My wife could speak to the store owner in Turkey, but I couldn't because my wife is Egyptian. She could speak in Arabic. Some people think that this 4 million people, it was actually a big discussion during the last election. This 4 million number is too high. So somehow they either need to go to Europe, some European countries, or they go back to Syria.
How big is the size of Turkey in terms of area?
Actually, that I don't know very well, but the population is 80 million. And 80 million people live in Turkey. And 20 million lives here. And I don't know, you probably don't see it here, but this red, this is the Syrian people population. Most of them live here. I'm from here. You can see it's also red. So it's adding a lot of pressure to Turkey. In terms of ethnic group, we call ourselves Caucasian. I don't know if this is probably not the same definition Caucasian that we use in the United States, but I don't have any other term. We think they're Caucasian. Kurds are pretty big in Turkey. Kurds are also Muslim, by the way. They're Sunni Muslim. They just speak different language, and they mostly live in this area, southern eastern Turkey. There's you might hear that some Kurds, oppression happening in Turkey. The population we do not recognize the Kurdish language in official communication, and Kurds do not like this. And this is coming from all the way to the Atatürk time. Essentially, Atatürk wanted to use one official language, Turkish, because of some unhappy Kurds now. We have a terrorist organization we call PKK, and it's causing a lot of trouble in Turkey. But there's quite a bit of tension. That's what I'm trying to say. There's quite a bit of tension happening within this region, and the rest of it. Okay, where are the Turks here? Where are the Turks here in Oregon? There's a lot of Turks here. I don't know, maybe in this mosque you see some of them. Um, um, but there, I believe, thousands of Turks live here. I don't know all of them. There's one umbrella organization. It's called ORTA. Multiple the important days in a year that we come together and celebrate. And these are the days that came 1920s when Atatürk founded the Turkey. He created these special days so we can celebrate. It's very similar to what we do in the United States. We have Children's Day, April 23rd. This is established in 1920 when Atatürk first created the Grand Assembly, the Congress. He devoted this day to the children. So that's one day. We have a Youth Day. This is May 19. This is the time Turkey fought against and won the British Empire at the time. We have a Republic Day. This is the day Turkey become actually dropped the Ottoman Empire name and became a Turkish Republic, October 29th. And there's also some planning going on to open some weekend schools and stuff, but it hasn't materialized yet. So there is this organization. There is also Turkish Employee Network at Intel. That's also some activity going on there. So there are quite a bit of Turks here living. Probably not all of them attend the mosque. Turks are religious Muslim, but they are not as religious as you might see in other countries, like from where you are, where you come from. But there are a lot of Turks here. Yeah, let me see. Politics. This might be interesting. Turkey is a divided country. You guys probably all hear the name Erdogan a lot. He's been in power since 2003. He's been in power almost 20 years. That's unheard of in Turkish history. We usually have a new president or prime minister every 3 to 5 years. This is unheard of. Erdogan has been in power so long. It's causing some tension. People are thinking he's becoming more and more a dictator or oppressor. Last election happened in actually this year in May, so maybe a month ago or something. And this is how the election results happen. So the red is Kılıçdaroğlu. It's almost like a Democrat party here, and Erdogan is more like Republicans here. You can see that all the coastal cities are red, and you would see this is blue in United States. So Erdogan won, but he won by a very tight margin. He just won by 2%. He could have lost the election essentially. This is where I'm from, Gaziantep. You can see that we voted for Erdogan. Erdogan is probably, after Atatürk, if the history writes, Erdogan would be the second, probably most known figure after Atatürk in Turkish history. No one stayed in power this long after Atatürk or became this powerful in Turkish history. So when he goes away, or when history writes, he'll be remembered in history, in Turkish history after Atatürk. Okay, I think I am ending my presentation. So Istanbul is the most famous city in Turkey. I'm pretty sure some of you already visited. There's a lot of historical Golden Horn area that you could visit. There are a lot of mosques here. there's Topkapı Palace, which used to house the all Ottoman sultans, and these are the mosques and the places that at some point every sultan created their own mosque. It was sort of a symbol of prestige. So you could see a lot of mosques in Turkey. Dates all the way back to 1400 era. One interesting place that I would probably highlight is Galata Tower. Maybe you guys never heard of this one. We believe that the first person to fly actually came from Turkey. So he flew from Galata Tower to the other side of the canal. And there's a movie about that too. He flew, he successfully flew, but he was later murdered by the Sultan because Sultan thought that he got too powerful. That's it. The other interesting, then this might be a little controversial, I don't mean to offend anyone here. There's a city called Şanlıurfa in Turkey, and you can ignore the Şanlı, this means just glorious, but maybe focus on the Urfa, U-R-F-A. A lot of Turks think that this is where Prophet Ibrahim was born. This is Prophet Abraham's cave, and then this is the sacred pool where you probably know Suratul Anbiya that Prophet Abraham when he was being murdered, the fire became, sorry, I forgot the exact, but fire didn't burn him. Turks believe that the fire became water and the wood became the fish. So this is sacred pool. There's a lot of fish here. No one eats that fish. People think that if you eat that fish, you'll get blind. You'll be blind. This is sacred pool, and if you just put your hand here, just get close, you'll see a lot of fish coming out. It's like you'll see more fish than water. It's so dense. No one touches that water. I'm sorry, the fish. No one eats that fish. It's called sacred. The city of Ur is controversial. Where it is, we don't know, right? But Turks believe that it's this city. Urfa is where the Prophet Abraham was born. The other thing that I don't know if you guys know, this been in the news quite a bit. The first temple in human history was also found in this city. It's Göbekli Tepe. There's a very nice TV series on Netflix, The Gift. It's a bit of a fictional version of the Göbekli Tepe. But this finding essentially changed the history. People didn't think that hunter-gatherers had any temples or any structures to get together, or sophisticated structures. But this is going back all the way to 14,000 BC, I believe, even before the pyramid. So the belief is that this changed the history, and this is the first temple. You could see a lot of animal figures in this one. And this was not found by a Turk, actually. It was found by a German archaeologist. This area is attracting a lot of tourists. One thing, this city is still not ready for prime time. When you go there, this is not one of the first places people go to. But I believe in future it will be. Our excavations are going on pretty much everywhere. People think this is part of Mesopotamia, Upper Mesopotamia. People believe that there's a lot of stuff that could change the history that we know today. First madrasa was, for example, believed to be in Morocco, but now it changed. 2 years ago, they found that there's even an earlier version of the first madrasa in this city. So this city is because of its rich culture, being part of Mesopotamia. It's very close to my hometown, so I know it very well. If you guys have a chance, this is a very interesting city. You might not agree with this Abraham's Cave or Sacred Pool, but you will see that the whole city is almost like bare area. But when you get here, it's very green. There's all water. That just pocket of area is very fertile. So that's an interesting place to visit. The other interesting place to visit, this is more like, more like going to the Roman Empire. The Ephesus area is, this area is essentially very famous. A lot of tourists go here first. This is on the Aegean side of it. You will see a lot of remnants from the Roman Empire. This one, actually, let me see. I have a bigger, so it's somewhere here. I don't know if you can. It's one of the well-known places, so I know a lot of people visit there. Nevşehir, Cappadocia, this is central Turkey. This is an area you will see a lot of balloons lifting in the morning, and then a couple of hours of just flying over the city and then taking down. You will see a lot of caves here, a lot of different structures. This is sort of middle of Turkey. Konya is an interesting city. This is where Rumi lived here in this city. You'll see the shrine of Rumi here. You'll see a lot of hurling dervishes here. It's also a very religious city here. This is also central Anatolia. Other than that, there's a lot of places to visit in Turkey. And being a peninsula, you could see a lot of different regions. If you go to Pamukkale, you could see hot springs here causing these nice shapes. In central Anatolia, you'll see a lot of caves and stuff. If you go up north Black Sea, you'll see essentially green, like Oregon here, yeah. And then this coastal cities have a lot of touristic activities. Most people, even like from European countries, they just come here and retire here. They buy properties and settle here. You might hear more English than actually Turkish. And from what I heard from my nephews, that nowadays here you might hear more Russian than Turkish. So this region is just very touristic area. And probably one of the first places you go to for most people. I think that ends my slides. Well, thank you everyone for listening to me. I hope I gave you some important information about Turkey, Turkey. That's all I have. Thank you. Yeah, feel free to ask me questions if you, yeah, please. Yeah.
How is
Atatürk. So Atatürk is, if you ask 90% of Turkey, they will have favorable opinion on Atatürk. But there is, so I met people in both spectrum. I especially in the eastern part of Turkey, you might see people who would absolutely hate Atatürk because of this alphabet changes, because of the secular constitution, and everything. But that number is pretty low. One thing is, this was actually tested. If you don't need to believe me on this. If you go to the politics of it, if I go to politics here, so Erdogan initially wasn't really pro-Atatürk. He was almost against Atatürk, but he had to change his tone to win it. So Atatürk and nationalistic side, like national Turk, almost synonymous in Turkey now. If you are a nationalistic person, you must love Atatürk. So Atatürk and Kılıçdaroğlu, is from the same party that Atatürk founded. So for the majority of Turkish people, Atatürk is a favorable figure. But it's not to say that 100%. I think it's more like 90-10. You might still see some people in Turkey who would absolutely hate Atatürk and his ideas.
Some of the people on the yellow areas, they like, some of them like.
Okay, I think for the most part, I could tell you in great confidence that these areas, the red ones, are pro-Atatürk. That's no questions. But in an Anatolian, southern eastern Turkey, especially even in this eastern part of Turkey, there are some religious factions like the Jaferis and Alevites and some Kurds who think that Atatürk did them harm. Kurdish people, their opinion of Atatürk changes. Some people like Atatürk, some don't. But that number is more even, I guess, in Kurdish people, because Atatürk essentially banned their language. He was promoting one language, Turkish language. So, for the most part, because of the big war he won, Atatürk, he got a big credit from the Turkish people. So, and he used that credit to change the country. And where we are now, I mean, one thing, maybe I don't mean to criticize any countries, by the way. If a lot of people nowadays look at Syria and how Syria is going through all this trouble, and Egypt has gone through going through trouble, they look at these regions, they say, and their opinion keeps changing because of, they're saying maybe what Atatürk did was good. So this became even more pronounced in the last 10 years or something. Now people are more pro-Atatürk than before. I think that 90-10%, that number I told you, I think it keeps increasing. People are becoming more and more Atatürk, pro-Atatürk than against Atatürk.
So why you, as Turkish people, you have a huge respect of when you have a great leaders all over the history, they have more impact in Turkish people and Muslim than Atatürk. So, for example, why don't you like Sulaiman Qanuni more than Atatürk? Why always you look at Atatürk as the great leader or source of inspiration? Don't you have many great leaders?
I think it's because of he just changed everything. I mean, Suleiman the Magnificent, he just continued what his father left him. He essentially got the sultanship from his father. He didn't have to fight for it. It was given to him. I think he was. One interesting thing is like Mehmet II, who conquered Islam, he became sultan at the age of 12 or something. Very early. I mean, it was just given to him. But when it came to Atatürk, he essentially used his brain, his prestige, his charisma. He rallied the whole country. He even dumped the whole Ottoman sultans to win the war against these big powers at the time. So he gets a lot of credit because of that. And it's because something recent. I mean, Suleiman the Magnificent, he lived in 1500. People don't remember him as much.
So far, I think for example,
Up.
One of the things you were saying is that he saved a lot of the Sultan before Atatürk. He was making some deal with the British and other countries to give away some part of Turkey. But Atatürk actually fought them and kept Turkey together.
Yeah, maybe a good example would be this city. This city was under French French siege. This city essentially, before Atatürk rallied this city again to fight against it, it was under France. If we were to follow Abdul Hamid's ideas, this city would be, this city would be called Antep Saint-Germain. So sort of like a Paris Saint-Germain. At the time, Abdul Hamid, I mean, he's not very favorable in Turkey. I mean, there are some people who like him, but because he gave up so easily to big powers, and he sort of just succumbed to the pressure at the time. He's not very favorable. And then his descendants just didn't even. I mean, his offspring and descendants are now not. They're not. They don't live in Turkey anymore. They don't even speak Turkish probably. So Ottoman history is sort of, has a lot of big sultans and also weak sultans, because of the blood ship that always needs to come from the same blood. I don't know if you guys know this, but usually the father is Ottoman, but the mom is usually not even Muslim, not even Ottoman. Like Suleiman's mom or Selim's mom was is a Christian. It was part of a concubine. So you can say I also don't look like any of these like other Turkey countries. We change a little bit. Our face is different. Ottoman history has a lot of good sultans, but also has a lot of weak sultans. Some of them thought to be even, I don't know, some of them thought to be even mad, like it's just it's psychologically not safe. But just because the blood needs to continue, these people are just given that right to rule the country. Most of them they were not even ready. Some people. There's one sultan called Mustafa. They would call him Mad Mustafa because he was not properly sound. But just because he was the son of a sultan, he became became the sultan. So Ottoman history, and probably for other countries as well, it just after Suleiman, it just went downhill, and. At the, yeah, I think democracy for the most part in Turkey it's cherished. People think it's a good thing. That even today, when Erdogan is going for his 20th year of ruling, people are still not happy that he's been in power so long. But because we live in a very difficult geography, we also think that we need one strong leader. But who's going to come after Erdogan is a big question mark. People don't think Kılıçdaroğlu, the other guy, is strong enough to rule the country. So it's we still think that it's a good thing to have democracy and elections. And for the most part, no one doubts that the election in Turkey is fair. So even an international organization, they think the election in Turkey is fair. And you can say it's evenly divided. One thing is not fair is that Erdogan is very powerful. So he uses media power and all government power to use it to his advantage. But the actual elections are thought to be fair in Turkey. There's no meddling and some stealing and stuff like that.
I guess in our report, for example, Erdogan is for the Muslim, right, or most of the religious Muslims and Arabs. They look up to Erdogan, basically, for what he did to the Turks. I mean, we are the same region, basically. And like how Turkey was before Erdogan, like almost failed state, right? He's a strong president, as you said, a strong man, but at the same time, he's not as vicious as the other rulers in the region, right? So it's like I think it's the balance, first to find the right balance, right? But I think it's fair. The question is, yes, if you build a strong, stable country, but what's after him? Who's the next succession? His party,
Yeah.
so this party collapse. It's not wise to be only one man show.
Yeah.
You need strong succession.
Yeah. I think, Erdogan is definitely very strong. And After the election, he changed his tone a little bit. For example, the central bank, he appointed an American CEO today. So uh, it was before, it would be unheard of before. He seems to be changing a little bit. He's realizing that his ideas are a bit, you know, yeah. Yeah, he used to be, yeah, he lost his thumb. That's a very good point, yeah. He seems to be softening up a little bit. So for the Treasury Department, he put another person with from some one of the big banks in Europe, maybe Chase or something, but Turkish origin, obviously. So he's going more orthodox, you know. By the way, I'm talking about all economy. I think religious-wise, a lot of people don't have any issues with. People like Erdogan for the most part. What he did, for example, in 2006, and my sisters are here. In 2006, my mom couldn't enter my brother's university because of hijab that she was wearing. She was able to go into my college because my college was a bit liberal, but it was sort of illegal for her to go to my with a hijab. So Erdogan did a lot of good things for religious people in Turkey, and Turkish people are mostly conservative people. I mean, mostly religious people. The fact that he allowed hijab in universities, in in the public areas, that was a big win for him. Previously, wearing hijab, someone in a Muslim country, sh- sisters would not be able to work in any public government agency. So that was a bit weird, but he essentially changed that. Nowadays, you could see a lot of people are able to go to university. You know, it was like a weird time where a sister would go into his university, just listen to a talk, and then professor would just ask her out. You cannot be here. Professor, it's not professor's fault because he or she has to do that, but essentially, one of the weird things, and I think this is the artifacts of Atatürk's, it wasn't Atatürk's problem. I think people became more Atatürk than Atatürk himself. I don't know if it's the right way of saying, but especially military power became more Atatürk. Economy is not, currency is devalued pretty badly. But because of the credit that he got, he allowed a lot of religious reform. Hagia Sophia, he made the mosque again. It used to be a museum. So those things still play a big role in Turkish election. I mean, please. So, so that's actually a tough question. In 2018, the constitution changed. Before that, we didn't have this election system. So this two-person election didn't exist before. But if I go back to 2018, this number it wasn't that big either. It was like 55 or something. But if that was 2018. 2018 was also Turkish economy was not doing very good. So for the last 10 years or something, Turkish economy is sort of in a downhill, and a lot of people blame Erdogan for that. But if you go back before 2012, 2013, I think and I couldn't tell you right away because the election system was different. It was a coalition. It was a different election system, but his party would get most of the seats in the parliament. Now he's getting barely. He actually doesn't have the full. A lot. He doesn't have the majority seats. Yeah, that's that's changing. I mean, That's a very good point. That's actually that's how it happened. I mean, I'll give you one dramatic example, and I don't mean to brag or anything. Um, 2010, 2012, if I go back and work in Turkey, I would get more salary in terms of dollars than here. I'm not exaggerating. They would actually offer me more money in dollars in Turkey than here. But now, my brother is a doctor in Turkey. He's not even making $1,000. So Turkish economy in 10 years went downhill really badly. And for the most part, Erdogan, and this might be a little controversial, Erdogan is against interest rate. Uh, we also against interest rate, obviously. But in a high inflation environment, you need some interest rate. He kept interest rates so low, inflation being at 30, 40%, but in interest rate being at less than 10%. Turkish currency just went downhill. Nowadays he changed his tone. He got a CEO from one of these big banks here. As head of the central bank. He seems to change his tone. He's gonna allow interest rate to go up a little bit. So I don't know if it's good or bad, but he's probably gonna at least keep inflation down. And the other thing with Erdogan is that um, a lot of people, especially some, if you go back 20 years ago, all the Turks that you would see here in this country, they would not pray at all. They would be all with their Western ideas. You wouldn't see Turks in the mosque 20 years ago. That changed when Erdogan came to power. Nowadays you see more Turks praying in the mosque and stuff. So that he essentially sort of lifts certain part of the Turkish people to come to Western countries like myself, for example. So that was a good thing. But he also used a military coup in 2016 to his advantage. He suppressed a lot of people. Sometimes he suppressed very innocent people. So Erdogan, and he has a lot of corruption going on. In the Middle East, in Turkey, in the Middle East, if you have a big family, like a lot of children, and if they get rich so all of a sudden that fast, you always have a question mark. So a lot of corruption charges are, happening against Erdogan nowadays. Yeah, please go.
I think it is the opposition is under that whether voting for the Arab person was it because the Arab person is strong one or is it because we don't like him?
So that's a good question. I'm not sure if I'll be able to answer it properly, but let me try. So Kılıçdaroğlu is a Alevi. I'm not sure if you guys know this. Like, I mentioned this. Turkish people, this is almost like 10% of the population is Alevi. The rest is Sunni Muslim. There is still a question mark what this guy is about. So people didn't trust him. People who voted for him also, especially this side, absolutely hate Erdogan. Because Erdogan essentially suppressed a lot of Kurdish leaders now in the prison, and the people in this area are mostly Kurdish people, and since they are in the prison, they absolutely hate Erdogan. So people from the Kurdish side also voted for Kılıçdaroğlu. But one thing that the fact that he's Alevi and he's not very strong leader, that's why he essentially lost this election. There was another candidate in the same party. He was, not Alevi, not that section, but he was also more nationalistic. People think that if that guy run against Erdogan, he would have won. Davutoğlu. No, he wouldn't win. He's a weak person. Ahmet Davutoğlu is he's not a proper leader. and in the last election, he didn't even win anything. I think just the fact that he was part of this. Davutoğlu is a very weak person. There's the mayor of Ankara. Ankara is the capital city. Mansur Yavaş. People think that he should have run against Erdogan because he was the same faction as Erdogan. But some people, especially in the southern eastern part of Turkey, they don't necessarily like Erdogan. They actually want Erdogan to go away, but they wouldn't trust in a person that they don't know very well. So, but Mansur Yavaş, the mayor of Ankara, they know him very well, and I think he would have won against Erdogan. It's just some political things happen. So what I meant to say is actually, in a Turkish, overall Turkey, if you look at Atatürk is 90-10%. 90% favor Atatürk, 10% wouldn't. But if you go to Kurdish area, that ratio will go against Atatürk. And that's because of Atatürk's reforms. Sometimes the fact that he was, he banned some Kurdish leaders and some language, people opinion of Atatürk goes down a little bit. But I don't have the exact figure, but the ratio will go down. There's more Kurds hate Atatürk than Turks. I'm sorry, I should say the other way. In Kurdish region, more and more people probably would hate Atatürk than the Turkish side. And the other thing that I probably have said this before, it's just because of people now look at Syria and Iraq and other countries. I think Turkey has become more and more nationalistic nowadays because of that. They essentially they think that, okay, the economy is going down, but at least I know this person, I know what he stands for. I don't want to risk it. I don't want to have another person. I don't know what he's going to do. Even though I'm not making as much money, I would still go for him. And to be honest, but I try to say this to other people. When someone in Turkey says he's or she's poor, they're not necessarily that poor, by the way. I mean, the idea of poor in Turkey is different. I think it's a bit of I think Turkish economy is compared to other countries. My own opinion, when I visit Turkey, is still a rich country. For the most part, people migrate to other countries to get just a little bit more money. But I could technically go and live in Turkey, and then I would have my car, like stuff like that. A lot of Turkish people are actually above the poverty line. It's just that I think the fact that it's going down, they don't feel good about it. But Turkish economy is not that bad. It's not as bad as it's portrayed in this in Western or in US. It's still pretty prosperous. The unemployment rate is okay. People make money. One figure that they keep saying, for example, minimum wage is, I don't know, some big number, but the people always have a couple of additional income coming from different things. So it's Turkish economy and Turkish people are not that poor. So the other thing is, I say Erdogan is about to lose because of economy, but it's not that bad. I think ever since Erdogan came to power, 2003, economy has been on a steady. It was going up in the direction. Now it's going down, but I mean, obviously, I don't know the other countries very well, but the life here, if I compare my life here versus life there, my purchasing power, it's not that different. Because people are not using dollars to buy things there. Whatever currency they use. So it's still a pretty prosperous country. That's why Erdogan still able to win. Thank you for listening. Yeah. Thank you for the questions.
You can do the chairs, inshallah, if you want 10 in the back and the rest outside.